Hey everyone, this is Brian again. This is the third of four videos that I'm doing on how to quickly memorize the bones and parts of the bones in the skull. Now, last time we finished up with the mandible, and this time we're going to go ahead and move on to the maxilla. Now, the maxilla here, you can clearly see, is this portion just above your jaw. Now notice that it doesn't include the inside of the nasal passage, or you can see on the side, the zygomatic bone right here is not included in that. Alright, let's go ahead. So, now we have the first up is the alveolar process of the maxilla. Now, if you remember from the last time, we had the alveolar process of the mandible. So, just like before, sounds like molar, alveolar process. Process is the protuberance. It's basically where all your teeth fit in. Now we have the anterior nasal spine. So the anterior nasal spine is obviously this little piece right here that's highlighted, and it's in the front, which is anterior. It's under the nose, and spine right there. Awesome. Next we have the frontal process of the maxilla. Now, if we can take a guess, frontal means the front. Process is obviously some sort of protuberance, something that's going to stick out a little bit. So we see right here. Now when somebody is thinking hard and they pinch their nose, it's about where it's going to be. So the frontal process. So you think when somebody's concentrating hard on that process, they're thinking hard. And that's the frontal process of the maxilla, those little bumps. Now the infraorbital foramen. Infraorbital, so it's going to be underneath the eyes, and it's going to be some holes underneath the eyes. So we can already kind of guess. That's right. It's these two little holes just under the eyes. Next we have the palatine process. Now palatine sounds like palate. So yep, there it is. Next we have the zygomatic process of the maxilla. So zygomatic process, so it's going to be the bump that connects to the zygomatic bone. Awesome, and that'll finish up the maxilla. And now we'll move on to the nasal bone. Now, the nasal bone, when you break your nose or you get a broken nose that shifts out of place and the doctor grabs it and sets it back, it's going to be this bone here. It's actually two pieces that are fused together. So that is the nasal bone. Next is the occipital bone. Now the occipital bone is directly behind the eyes. So the first part of the occipital bone that we're going to look at is the external occipital protuberance. So the external occipital protuberance, it's going to be this little bump right there. And that's underneath. Now, the external occipital protuberance, there's actually a famous one. Pluto here, you can see this is his occipital protuberance. And external just means it's on the outside. Next is the foramen magnum. Now magnum, think of like a magnum gun. It's the big one. So the biggest hole in the skull. It's going to be this right here. Right there. And that's where all the big nerves come through, of your spinal cord comes through. So foramen magnum. Remember foramen is like ramen, hole. Next is the hypoglossal canal. Now the hypoglossal canal is really hard to see in these pictures. Go ahead and have a zoomed in look. Now, easy way to remember this is that you don't want to gloss over the hypoglossal canal. It's because they're hard to see. They're on the side right there. So don't gloss over the hypoglossal canal. So the nuchal lines, nuchal sounds like neck lines, right here on the occipital bone, right on the back. Next is the occipital condyles. Remember, condyles are rounded like a Klondike bar. This is the occipital bone still. It comes all the way under here. These are the condyles. All right. Next is the palatine bone. The palatine bone is right underneath the palate. We have two parts of this one. One is going to be the horizontal plate, right there. Now the horizontal plate is called the horizontal plate because it's horizontal to the horizon. So it's the flat plate, horizontal plate. Next we have the palatine foramen. So these two little holes right here. Go ahead and look closer. See them. So palatine, palatine foramina. Next we have the parietal bone right here. Easy way to remember it is parietal, like parent. The parent is the head or the top of the family. And we can see that these bones, this is the parts of the bone or the skull that are at the top. Temporal lines. So on the skull, we're only going to have two lines. Remember, the other one is the nuchal lines. Sounds like neck. And then we have the temporal lines, which are next to your temple. All right, and that'll be all for this one. We'll go ahead and finish up with one more after this one, and that'll be it. Thank you so much.